plants for 5 people. It's enough to do that. If you have your harvest, again, to look for publicity, to present it in a public way, to say you have now your first harvest and you have shown that it is possible. If there's still no sign of response there, it's time to make step 3, which is the professionalization of your club. You need to make another organization, another structure at the moment that you will get new members in that you don't know. You have never talked with these people before, you never know who they are. You need to install some measures to make sure you prevent problems. So you need to apply some protocols there. In the first place, for your members, you have to apply a protocol that you do not just take anonymously new members in your club. You organize an intake interview where you go through some questions together with your members. You find out, for instance, if they're 18 or 21, what is their history of cannabis use. Well, we come back to that later. But you have this membership form, you have this intake interviews. Then, of course, you have to have a protocol on privacy. Members are reluctant to register in a club because they are afraid their identity will be leaked. And not only towards the police, but maybe towards their employer or their teacher or somebody who should not be aware of that this person is a cannabis consumer. So it's a responsibility that you take, and if you take people's identity, you need to have a policy on privacy. You will see that, as you're a Cannabis Social Club, you have to react on. First, you have to get new members in, and then you have to increase your production capacity. You cannot just increase your production capacity without that you have members. So you have first to have members and then start to produce. So there is a time where people have to wait. They have to stand on waiting lists because you first as a club have to find space to grow for them. Then you have to have a policy on medicinal users. Some medicinal users cannot wait. You cannot leave them waiting for so long. So you have to have a policy where you help medicinal users before you help recreational users. You have to have a clear communication with your members. Make sure they get informed regularly about the advance of the club so they keep trusting you. There's a lot of so-called and fake activism and cannabis distribution around. So people need to trust you. You need to communicate with them. You need to keep them aware of how you're growing and what they can expect from you. And then, of course, also it's good to organize moments where people come together, where members come together, and they participate in non-cannabis related activities. That is not all about cannabis distribution. It's also about showing what cannabis culture is and organizing people together in a political way, so you make it clear for authorities, for public opinion and for the media that this is really an alternative for a legal market. You have also the possibility to make a kind of social medical program where you follow people. If people are willing to have some conversations about their cannabis consumption with a doctor, you organize a doctor, or you organize moments where you regularly check if people are happy with the way they are treated in the club, but also with their cannabis consumption as such. In this way you can also play a role in prevention of problematic consumption. In the intake interview, for instance, you check if they are adults, you check if they are resident of the country, and this is important. What we have seen in Spain, for instance, in Spain, the whole concept has come under pressure at the moment. They have allowed tourists inside the clubs. That has blown up a little bit the system, because then at that moment, of course, the tourists, they come and the same night they want to smoke, and then it becomes very tempting for the Spanish clubs to start growing and growing and growing, because they know they will be able to sell it to tourists, and then the whole system falls apart, of course. Then it becomes a concept based on supply. Somebody who has the possibility to grow a lot of weed and then organizes a Cannabis Social Club in order to sell it. This is, of course, a whole different concept, and it is also endangering at the moment the concept in Spain. The reaction of the authorities has especially has been provoked by the fact that some clubs become so big. They start to send flyers out in the Ramblas in Barcelona that here you can go there in this club, you can get cannabis. So the whole concept becomes commercially driven. And yeah, we think this is a problem that can be avoided by saying, well, the clubs are for the people who live in the country, and yeah, for those people we first have to make it accepted in our country, that our authorities need to accept it, and that tourists is the second phase, is the next phase. It's something that we would like, of course, tourists also to help them. But yeah, in this situation, we see this also a little bit in Colorado at the moment, that when there is one country where cannabis is available and a lot of other countries around where it is not, then there comes a whole lot of pressure on this country, on this place, because a lot of people want to go and get legal cannabis, but it also makes it worse for the people in that place because the prices go up, and there is this tension with the public opinion, the authorities, that they don't like to see it. Cannabis tourism has been an argument for the Dutch government to clamp down on coffee shops. It's been an argument for the Spanish government to clamp down on Cannabis Social Clubs. So we think it is better to avoid that and to focus only on the residents. Then on the intake interview, you also check how is their history with cannabis use, how long they smoke, how much experience they have, do they know what are the risks? And you tell them about how they can prevent this risk, and you make them confident that they can also come in a moment, at the moment where they experience problems, they can come to the club and try to get help from them. You explain the procedures, you make them sign declarations and so on. Then the administration of the plans, of course, you have to document them well. It always has to be clear from your documentation where you have plans, how many. So if there is an authority action that authorities want to get in and get to know how are you working, if you're not some kind of fake dealers, then you have immediately the documentation ready and you can show that you are working decently. Of course, you still have to have a discretion around the growing places. It's not good to have this in a very public way. You don't need only to be careful with the police. There's also other people who would like to know where you are growing, so you have to be careful with that. And start small. Don't start immediately to think about thousands of members, but start to grow for 10 members, then after for 50, then after for 100, and grow solidly. Then you will see you will take each step in a good way and you are able to defend it if something goes wrong. The growers, you can really give them, it's the most difficult thing. It's the most dangerous place of a Cannabis Social Club, because the growers need to be trustful. They need to work together with you and not sell on the black market behind your back. So you need to set up a good relationship with growers. They should see the privilege, the advantage of working together with the Cannabis Social Club. Not only can they get technical advice of people who help to establish a grow room, optimize it, to prevent plagues in a biological way, to help in emergencies. No other grower can just have all this assistance from one place. And then, of course, a transparent calculation of the price, a test on active elements you can do, and then the legal support in case of problems. Then finally, if all this goes on, if you're operating this without any interference from the politicians, then you have a perfect model to go to authorities and to present them what if you could do this in the whole city or in the whole country based on this model, and you would allow us to grow somewhere. We have made this calculation for the city of Antwerp. If the city of Antwerp would allow us to grow for 30,000 cannabis consumers in our city, we could do it for €5 a gram, which is very, very cheap. It's the half of what is sold on the black market. We would create 250 full-time equivalent jobs as gardeners, as service providers. we would be able to pay 1 million euro for a rent of a greenhouse of 6,000 square meters and still have 4 million euros in tax every year for the city. So it would be a completely win-win situation for everybody. And yeah, we are now waiting for the possibility to discuss this really with our authorities, who are, of course, at the moment still too shy and too afraid to speak about this. But we think this is, in a few years, this may be a possibility. With the Cannabis Social Club, you can immediately see that there is advantages of regulation that immediately come up. They appear versus prohibition. All the things that we have today with prohibition, like legal insafety, no control on production, increased THC levels, easy access for young people, all these things, you can already show that when you do it in a Cannabis Social Club, you can see that this already disappears. So nobody really can be against it, except the people who want to have a mafia-driven industry, and of course a control-driven policy, and that is the few that want that still. But the most others, they think there's no problem. And then if there's any answer from a politician that says, no, the European Union does not allow this, we will be punished by Brussels if we do this. Well, in 2006 we already asked this to the European Commissioner of Justice. Is it a problem for the European Union if national member states allow the growing of cannabis for personal consumption? And he answered that it is not. There's nothing in the European legislation that stops national member states to allow personal consumption. And there's nothing also in the United Nations agreements that prevent countries to allow this to their citizens. So the step 4 approach: first the public presentation of your initiative, then to create a club, then to professionalize it and administrate your growing, and then finally to convince your politicians. If you need any help or further information, you are always welcome to contact us, and I wish you good luck. Thank you very much.
Some questions?
If there are any questions.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know anything about that, but my question is from the illegal side. So if you are allowed to grow for your own consumption, how is it then in the club? So you're also not allowed to pay a membership, right? So you have to be. Do you also have to do something actively in the club, or can you be just a member of the club and then get your cannabis without? I mean, where you have to basically prove that there's no cash flow. Is that correct?
You have to prove what?
That there's no money flow, right? If you are a member of this club and you don't do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just a member of the club.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say the grower is paid by the club. Is that correct?
Yes. In our system, we have several members who grow.
Yeah.
And we have members who do not grow.
Okay, so it means that the members who do not grow, they have to pay the ones who are growing.
Yeah.
Is that a problem legally, or?
No. The figure is that the members pay membership.
Okay.
At us, it's 25 euros a year. Mm. That's the membership just to be a member. And then if they consume, so if they order plants, they pay a variable membership to allow the association to grow their plants, and they pay according to their consumption. So at our club they pay €7 a gram for the amount of cannabis they consume. Every 2 months they have the possibility to receive their plant.
Okay.
And we put this plant in bags of 20 grams and a bag with all the leaves and the material that is not consumable. So they pay for the service that the association does by growing this plant for them.
And
in
this
this
is not a legal problem that you basically pay some money to